This is Rich Walkus for Flood Talk from H2O Partners USA. Here to talk to you today about letters of map change, better known as LOMCs. Sometimes when FEMA issues flood maps, there can be disagreements with those maps. Homeowners and local community officials can have a beef with what those maps say. Was that really necessary? Well, if they do have these disagreements, there are a variety of different types of challenges that can be made regarding flood maps. But they all fall under the heading of letters of map change. The first type of challenge involves a procedure called Letter of Determination Review, or LODR. The LODR has to be jointly requested in writing by the lender and borrower, and it is time sensitive. It must be requested within 45 days of when the lender first notifies the borrower that they have to purchase flood insurance. Let's illustrate a letter of determination review, or LODR, by going to Bartonsville. The Slevin River runs right through the Graham subdivision within the NFIP participating community of Bartonsville. On either side of the Slevin, a special flood hazard area, an AE zone, has been designated on Bartonsville's flood map. Now, a LODR is used when there is dispute between the lender and the borrower over which flood zone a building is in. It's basically a dispute over who is reading the map correctly. A good example of that dispute is found in buildings A and C. Notice how part of the lot that building A sits on is in the special flood hazard area, but the building itself appears to be out. Now let's look at building C. Notice that a small portion of the building is in a special flood hazard area. If any portion of the building is in, then the whole building is considered to be in the floodplain, and, as a result, flood insurance would be required. So, if a lender's determination shows it looks more like building C, but the borrower thinks it looks like building A, then the lender will require flood insurance, and you have the type of dispute that could be settled through the Letter of Determination Review process. This procedure is discussed in the Flood Insurance Manual and in FEMA's Mandatory Purchase of Flood Insurance Guidelines booklet, as well as on FEMA's website. But remember, it's time sensitive. Lender and borrower must approach FEMA within 45 days of that notification, and then FEMA has 45 days to respond once supplied all the necessary technical information. FEMA's response will indicate what flood zone the building is in based on the information submitted. In the meantime, if the loan has to be closed while waiting for FEMA's response, the lender would require that flood insurance be purchased. If FEMA rules in the borrower's favor, it's possible to cancel the policy using FEMA's letter with regard to the determination as support. The next type of challenge involves something called a Letter of Map Amendment, or LOMA. The LOMA process is outlined in FEMA's Mandatory Purchase of Flood Insurance Guidelines booklet, as well as in the map section of the NFIP Flood Insurance Manual. If the LODRs dispute over how to read the map correctly, the LOMA involves a dispute with the map itself. Now take a look at Building B. At first glance, everyone would agree that Building B is clearly in the special flood hazard area. No one would disagree, but Building B is substantially elevated on a natural knoll too small to be shown on the map. So, although the map includes it in the special flood hazard area, the property owner is convinced that it sits on ground so high that it should not be included in the floodplain. Well, the LOMA process is designed to have FEMA take a look at the technical elevation data submitted by the property owner to determine whether the map should be amended and the building removed from the special flood hazard area. If removed, the building would no longer be in an AE zone, and flood insurance would no longer be mandatory unless the lender decided it still wanted to require it as a condition of the loan. Not only does the LOMR represent a different type of dispute, it also differs from the LODAR in that it's not time sensitive. It can be done at any time, and the lender does not have to be involved. The property owner typically makes the LOMR request. Once again, if the map is amended, and it's amended by FEMA actually issuing a letter, then it's possible to cancel the flood insurance policy with the lender's written permission. The letter of map revision, or LOMR, is similar to a LOMA from the insurance standpoint, but it typically involves an official revision to the flood map and generally applies to multiple structures and/or a specific geographic area. In addition, all LOMR requests come to FEMA through the community, since the community would have to adopt the official revisions to the map, even though the revisions are done by letter. A LOMR is usually followed at a later date by an actual physical map revision. Once again, the same type of flood insurance policy cancellation provisions can apply to buildings removed from the floodplain. To illustrate a LOMR, let's take a look again at the Graham subdivision in Bartonsville. Along the Slevin River, buildings B, C, and D were included in the AE zone when the map was originally issued. Here again, the whole subdivision was built on an elevated knoll, too small to register on the Bartonsville flood map. What can be done? Well, the NFIP participating community of Bartonsville can apply for a LOMR. And if it's approved by FEMA, the whole subdivision is removed from the AE zone and put into an X zone. Finally, the last type of map challenge or dispute can be resolved through a process called Letter of Map Amendment, out as shown. This procedure in some ways is similar to the LODAR, but it is not time sensitive, and it does not require the lending institution to be involved. It also requires less technical data because, once again, it involves a dispute over how the map is being read. The LOMA, out as shown, again involves a dispute over whether a building is just in or just out of the special flood hazard area. Just like building A and C, the out as shown determination does not require elevation data to be submitted. It simply requires a sufficient amount of property location information to be submitted to FEMA so it can determine where it is on the map. More specifics are found in the Flood Maps section of the NFIP Flood Insurance Manual. A mapping specialist at the FEMA Map Information Exchange can also help, and I'll show you in a moment how to contact a FEMA mapping specialist. Simply put, if a FEMA mapping specialist finds that the building, in this case Building A, is not in the special flood hazard area, a letter will be issued stating that the property or building is out as shown, rather than removed, as it would be with a normal letter of map amendment. And one more item to discuss here is the Summary of Map Action, or SOMA. A question that frequently comes up when a community's map is revised is, hey, what happens to all those previous letters of map amendments and map revisions? Well, when a revised map is issued, all the previous map actions, these things we've been talking about like LOMAs and LOMARs, they're all superseded by a new map. So the new map has to be updated to include all the information from those changes. FEMA and its mapping contractor do that through this process called Summary of Map Action. Basically, what a SOMA does is provide a process for automatically revalidating letters of map change when a new map is issued. For more information on any of these letter of map changes processes, you can contact a FEMA mapping specialist for assistance at the FEMA Map Information Exchange at 877-336-2627. The FEMA mapping specialists are available to the insured, borrowers, property owners, insurance agents, lenders, and anybody that would just like to chit-chat about maps. Well, that's enough chit-chat from me. That does it for Letters of Map Change. This is Rich Walker saying goodbye for Flood Talk from H2O Partners USA.